This video is sponsored by Bellesa. Stay tuned for more details on our massive toy giveaway. Hey guys, today we're talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses, also known as ACOTAR. This is a book by Sarah J. Maas, and if you've been on TikTok or Book Talk, this is what people are talking about when they talk about fairy smut. I don't actually think that this book qualifies as smut, but we'll get into that later in the review. I read ACOTAR a few years ago when it was in its TikTok heyday. I think that was early 2021, and I really enjoyed it. I read the first two, and then life happened, and I kind of got interrupted in my flow. So I decided recently I should read from the beginning. I should start over. So as I was listening to the audiobook, I thought, why am I not doing a review / breakdown of this book? So here we are. And I wanted to collab with someone. I just thought that would be really fun to have someone to kind of bounce ideas off of, and it'll be just, you know, a fun, goofy, fun time. And it was totally meant to be because I was on TikTok and I saw my friend Marchie, who happens to live like 15 minutes away from me. And she's read every single book. Like, she's an expert. So perfect for her to do this book review with me. I had so much fun. So without further ado, here is my slightly tipsy review / breakdown of A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Cheers. Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Marchie.
Hi, I'm Marchie.
Today we're talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses. Welcome. Marchie has read this book and all of them in like a week.
Yeah, about a week.
Yeah.
I had nothing else to do.
Disclaimer, this video contains spoilers, okay? It's a book review.
Why wouldn't it?
You want to read the book, but you don't want to read the book, and you want to get it from me and us.
Here we are.
We're going into ACOTAR as if this is the first time we've read it. Start of the book.
Yeah.
We're introduced to Feyre.
Yes.
19, youngest of 3 daughters. Also,
she's 19.
the most hated of the daughters. Everybody hates her.
For no reason.
Her dad is disabled, he can't walk well, and their mother died years earlier.
Yeah.
So Feyre is quite literally holding her family together. Like, she hunts, she cooks, she chops wood, she literally does everything. If they didn't have Feyre, they would literally starve.
Yes.
So you would think that they would appreciate her like a little bit, but no. They're the worst. Okay, so Feyre's skinny little ass is out in the woods trying to hunt a deer, okay? Yeah. She's getting ready to shoot this deer, and she comes across this wolf, and it's gigantic. And this wolf is eyeing the deer. And so she's in this place where she's like, this wolf is a little bit bigger than a normal wolf, so it's possible that it's a fairy, but like very possible it's a fairy. But also, she's starving. They haven't had food in days.
Yeah.
So she's like, I either kill the deer and then get killed by this wolf, or I kill both of them.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she did.
It's so funny that like whole description, I had to read that description a couple of times because I couldn't figure out if she for sure thought it was a fairy or didn't. Or if this was like a narrator's like point of view on, here's some background lore about like fairies or can be larger wolves or whatever. Or if she was like, no, this is for sure a fairy and I'm gonna kill it. That was a little bit confusing for me. But ultimately, she does kill both of them.
Yes. But I think it was more of a, there's a chance this is a fairy, but even if it is, good riddance.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. For
And
sure.
Feyre had some ash arrows, which she believes can kill fairies. So just in case this were to happen. But the Fae treaty that they have with humans, and it seems like this is like hundreds of years. So there's a lot of like urban legends and myths and old wives' tales about fairies that she thinks are true, but like,
that we know that they exist past this wall. And that's what's separating them from the humans. But sometimes both sides like sneak through and different things. There's different lore about what happens when you go in between.
Yeah, and it's against the Fae treaty to kill a Fae.
They're also not supposed to be on the side of the wall either.
Yes, Feyre is desperate, so she kills the wolf and the deer.
What I think is fair.
Huge bounty for her. Like, this is a big deal. I'm happy. So she skins the wolf right then and there because she can't carry everything home. She carries the doe and the wolf hide. Can you imagine Feyre, skinny little teenager, walks in covered in blood, carrying a wolf hide?
Think about that. Also, just
Scary.
carrying a deer is like,
that's a lot.
That's so much weight. And then if this is a large wolf that you're carrying a pelt, she's strong. Like,
she's ripped.
Extremely strong.
All right. Canon confirmed Feyre is ripped. This video is sponsored by Bellesa. Come here. Real talk. I have been a Bellesa customer for years. Number one, because they make bomb toys. And number two, because they are a bi women company and their whole mission is to inspire people to embrace, explore, and celebrate their sexuality. And I love that. Let me go through some of the toys that Bellesa sent me. This is the first one that I purchased with my own dollars. This is the Air Vibe. You can see that it has dual stimulation for the bean and the G, and it's just fantastic. The cool thing about Bellesa products is they all come in these discreet cases. It almost looks like a makeup compact. Am I doing my makeup? No, I'm having some me time, okay? They actually charge inside the carrying cases, and they're all waterproof. The next one is the Pebble. It has a similar case to the Air Vibe. It's ergonomically built to fit perfectly in your hand, and the suction and the vibration are controlled independently. And most importantly, no annoying vibration patterns. If you know, you know. This one is called the Thump. This says it is designed to be the de facto replacement for all external beam stimulated vibes. Because not only does it thump, it also vibrates, and there's suction. You know what I mean? Here's the really fun part. Bellesa does not mess around when it comes to their giveaways. Free toys or gift cards to everyone who signs up using my link in the description. Literally everyone wins something. This is so exciting. I love working with Bellesa, not only because they are just so lovely to me in our collaborations together, but because I truly believe in their company, and I've been a supporter and a customer for so long before I even started my YouTube channel. So thank you again to Bellesa for sponsoring this video. Remember, use my link in the description. Sign up. Everyone wins something. So she takes the wolf pelt and the doe home, and she's able to sell the wolf pelt for a big profit. So that's great. Here we learn a little bit more about Feyre's family, and this is important because later in the books, like later in the series, I mean, we learn a lot more about Elaine and Nesta. And by we, I mean the universe. I actually haven't read those ones, but we learn more about them. Feyre's family used to be really wealthy in like a capitalist shill stock market kind of way, right? Because he was like gambling or like investing in, you know, making risky investments. Yeah. Capitalism sucks.
Once again, it doesn't even work in a fantasy world.
God. Okay, but he lost it all. They now live in poverty, and Dad's unable to work because
he's disabled.
Yeah.
Or is he?
He can't really walk. His old creditors like beat the shit out of him.
That's right.
Also, her sister Nesta, kind of a bitch.
Worst person.
She's not nice.
Here's the thing is when I was reading it, I was like, first of all, you're spending so much time on this character, like clearly we're gonna spend some more time with her. But also, I hated her immediately because that's what you're supposed to, right? Yeah. You're supposed to dislike her a lot. But I loved the fact that I hated her because when do you ever see a female character that is just purely, like, not evil, just the worst.
Just unlikable.
Just unlikable.
Yeah.
That never happens.
That's true.
If you look at the Harry Potter world, like, there's so much gray area when it comes to characters with, like, Snape and, like, all of these different characters that have, like, moral ambiguity. None of the women fit that. It's either Bellatrix or Mrs. Weasley. Like, there's no complexity to it. It's either evil or it's good. Nothing in between.
That's so true.
To have a character that's not evil, she's not inherently evil. She's just unlikable. She's just the worst.
She's just a mean
I kind of enjoyed it.
At the beginning, I was instantly curious about her, and I do think that that is credit to Sarah J. Maas.
Absolutely.
For creating this character who I hate, but I'm also like, why the are you so
on?
mean?
Right.
Why do you hate Feyre so much? Like, please.
She's the only reason that you're alive. Like, quite literally the only reason.
Like, Feyre comes home with the deer, cold, exhausted, covered in
blood.
Grime and blood. And maybe I imagined this more because, like, you get the sounds of, like, ugh, like throwing the deer in this performance. And Nesta makes a comment about how Feyre should chop the wood because she doesn't like the splinters that her fingers get. Nesta does chop the wood the next day, but still, like, that made me really mad. So this is where shit's about to get real. A big wolf lion creature shows up to the door.
There's a big old creature that
we're gonna find
no matter the amount of descriptions that are in this book about it, could never imagine accurately.
I know. So I've read these books twice now. I was like, it's a big wolf type creature. But then you read it again and it's not.
Oh, please, I'm gonna try and imagine this.
The beast had to be as large as a horse, and while his body was somewhat feline, his head was distinctly wolfish. I didn't know what to make of the curled elk-like horns that protruded from his head, but lion or hound or elk, there was no doubting the damage his black dagger-like claws and yellow fangs could inflict.
You have to pick a creature.
Says who?
Says me, the reader.
Yes.
You just described 5 different animals for me to imagine this creature as that don't fit any
Horse,
of them.
lion,
feline,
wolf. Yes, yeah. Oh, and elk.
Elk, antlers.
Like, no wonder we didn't know what to imagine. He comes in and he's screaming, "Who killed my friend?" Like, he's really mad. And Feyre is like, "What the hell? I didn't murder anyone." And he's like, "You didn't kill that wolf?" And she's like, "Okay, well, I did do that."
You did. Okay, well, you got me there.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that was me. Sorry. Oh, and she's like telling the truth because, first of all, Feyre is scrappy as hell. And I love that about her. She's terrified. She's in front of her family that's like cowering, you know, she's taking on the beast. So she's like, yeah, I did it. What of it? Like, she's just so bold in this moment.
What?
I love it. So yeah, the wolf from the forest was a fae.
Yeah.
We kind of saw this coming, but he's like, how dare you? I'm going to kill your whole family in revenge. No, he's like, you're gonna come live with me.
Absolutely.
And she's like, wait, what? He's like, no, you gotta come live with me.
No, you're now mine.
We got a Beauty and the Beast situation, everybody. He cites the Fae Treaty.
Yeah. So it's a treaty thing where it's like, you either decide between being killed, or your entire family being killed, or you can come live with me as my captor, and I'll leave them alone.
And I have to say, at the time when I was reading this, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Not a lick of sense, because later, you know, they're on their way. I'm skipping ahead. Basically, she's like, are you gonna make me a servant? Am I a slave? And he's like, no, you just have to live with me. You're a guest. What? Weird. Okay,
really weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of myth and legend around the Fae because no humans that are alive today remember the treaty. I want evidence. Where is this signed document? Do we have a DocuSign that we can see? Because I need evidence of what these are. So she breaks the treaty by killing this Fae, but maybe Fae, big giant wolves, shouldn't be hanging out in the forest.
Why were they in the forest? I think my assumption with that scene was like, oh, the forest at some point is no man's land, where like they're not. But like, then why have a giant wall? If they're on that side of the wall, then it should be the human.
Yeah. Look, I don't blame Feyre for a second.
Not a
Feyre
second.
Killed that wolf and she got some nice money out of it. Her family's taken care of. That's great. Okay. So she decides to go with him. And by decides, that's her only option.
It's like, well, do I die? I guess not.
But not because she wants to save her own ass, because she wants to protect her family again, because that's all that Feyre cares about, and that's amazing. But she actually says, not just to save her family, but specifically she wants to go with him so her sisters and dad don't have to live through the trauma of watching Feyre be chomped on by a monster. Like, that's so specific.
Yeah, that is really specific.
She's like, they will survive if I die. I don't want them to see it.
Yeah.
Isn't that so sad?
That's so sad and so sweet, and also not true. If none of the sisters are doing anything, they won't survive.
Yeah. No, they won't. So her sisters say nothing, not even a goodbye, but her dad is like, never come back. Even if you find a way to escape, never come back.
A very bizarre thing for a father to say.
Maybe I can sort of see what he means, but also not even an I love you. Thank you. Like, goodbye. Have a nice journey.
I remember that line making sense for some reason, but I don't remember why.
Because he said, even if you escape, go live a good life. Never come back here.
Oh, yeah. I remember this because he was like, you're like wasted potential here, basically.
Yeah.
Like, we're just using you.
Yeah. I think it was really painful for Feyre because we already get in the first like 30 pages, we already see that she's like majorly unappreciated by her family.
Absolutely.
They completely rely on her, but they don't ever appreciate it. Her dad instead turns it into shame. So he sees her bringing in this wolf, like all of this, you know, bringing them food, but instead of thanking her or trying to clean it or do something to contribute, he immediately feels like shit about himself.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've met somebody like that.
It's annoying.
It's the worst.
It's really, really frustrating.
So in this moment...
Like, oh, okay, so you're taking... It's a vanity thing then. You want me to pity you. Yeah. Now I have to do the extra work as well to be like, no, you're fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
When, like, in reality, you should be comforting me.
Exactly. It bothered me. She's so unappreciated. He comes up to her. She's thinking that he's going to give her a hug, say goodbye. And it's just... I don't know if he gives her a hug. Yeah, a normal... And I don't know if he gives her a hug. I can't remember, but he just says like, never come back.
So weird.
Yeah. It's just assuming like, don't come back here because then you're gonna have to fill the same role.
Yeah. Which again, you can see to some extent how that is a loving father's perspective. Is that the time to say that to her?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It was one of those moments where I was like, I see where you're going. Bad.
Isn't that a real father? Just saying the worst thing at the worst.
Yes. Okay, so they're traveling to Prythian. That's where the Fae realm is. Well, that's what the Fae realm is. I just really like this passage. I think it says a lot about Feyre. She says, but it was not my own doom I contemplated as I let myself tumble into dread and rage and despair. As we rode on, I alternated between a wretched smugness at the thought of my family starving and thus realizing how important I was, and a blinding agony at the thought of my father begging in the streets, his ruined leg giving out on him as he stumbled from person to person. I loved the way that was written.
Same.
Because again, here we get like some complexity to the character where she's like, there is this sick, twisted sense of like, finally you'll see how important I am to you, which I understand.
I think that's one of the biggest strengths of this series is this acknowledgement of the complexity of emotions that you have in certain situations like this, or like in traumatic situations like this. I 100% understand her reaction being like, now we're gonna see how important I was, but also that was why I was doing all of that work so this wouldn't happen, and now I like obviously don't want that for my family either. That is consistent throughout the series, that we see from the characters of like wrestling with really complex, logical and rational emotions to use, and I think that that's a really hard thing to parse through as a writer, so that I give huge.
Yeah, I think Sarah J. Maas is good at writing complex characters.
Absolutely.
You got to give her that. And I think that it shows also how we know that they grew up very wealthy. And Feyre is the youngest. So Nesta and Elaine, especially Nesta as the oldest, her basically whole formative years, she had money and everything she needed. Feyre didn't even get to go to school. So Feyre doesn't know how to read, which pisses me off, like that she literally got the short end of the stick, because when her mom died, she was also like, take care of the family for me. Why? She's 9. She was 9 when her mom died. 9! Okay, so they make the journey to Prythian. They're in the Feylands. It takes a couple days, and the Fey, the big monster guy, uses magic on Feyre so that she kind of like sleeps the whole way. But
which, honestly, nice.
I know.
That's gotta be nice.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Can I have that when I'm on a plane?
I actually do that, and it's not always the best. I physically cannot stay awake on planes. I actually just made a TikTok about this because the last plane that I was on, I slept the entire time like normal. For me. And when I woke up, we were like starting to land and I was like picking my stuff up. And the woman next to me, oh my God. The woman next to me in the middle seat goes, oh, you're awake. You were such a sweepy, sweepy baby. And while she said sweepy, sweepy baby, she stuck her finger in my armpit and tickled me. And that is why I know that my fight, flight, freeze response is freeze, because I literally went complete blank slate, could not figure out how to react to that situation.
Okay,
this is a grown woman.
Was she old?
She was like 35. Kind of the vibe of like 35 going on 60. You know what I mean?
The elder millennial.
Yeah.
While they're on this journey that she sleeps through most of it, the monster does tell her that the Fey Treaty forbids them from keeping humans as slaves.
Oh, that's positive.
But she's still worried because she's like, well, why the hell would you want me?
Right. There's something going on here because
she's
this is weird.
She's worried about how she's going to be treated. So they end up in the spring court. Later we find out that there are 7 courts of Prythian. There's the seasons, makes sense. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. But then we have 3 like times of day courts: day, night, and dawn. So Feyre is literally just came from her home in the winter, and now it's spring and gorgeous, and there's like rose gardens and flowers everywhere. We learned that Feyre is a painter. So in her old home, like there are tiny paintings that she's done on furniture. Like she's very passionate about it. And I do like how Sarah J. Maas describes the way that Feyre sees the world.
Yes.
So right when she arrives to the spring court, she wants to paint but has never really had the opportunity to because she doesn't have the money, and she's just like blown away by all the beauty and the colors and everything. There is a joke on the internet that she's actually a terrible painter.
Because why would she be a good one?
I know.
She's had no time to practice.
I know. And I do think that's a fun idea to think about, so like her passion, but she's actually really bad. And I genuinely like love people who are passionate about something and don't care about the outcome. Like who are passionate about art and continue to do it even though they're terrible.
Yeah.
And so it is funny to think of Feyre's passion. Like that's the same, but is she good? We don't know. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
But surprise, once she's in the manor, the wolf turns into a hot fae.
What?
High fae. High fae are the ruling class of the lesser fae, which is like, can we talk about that a little bit?
No, it's just the rules.
Yeah. Lesser.
Some of them, it's a biological thing. Some fairies just have more magic than others, and that makes them the ruling class.
Eugenics.
Kinda. But in like a real way.
So it seems like the lesser fae, I think we learn more about this in the following books, but what we know from this book is the lesser fae can kind of look like anything. Like they can look like monsters, but the ones that look like humans, those are all high fae, right?
Yes, I think that's accurate, yeah.
Yeah. So high fae look like humans. humans, but they got the pointy ears. You know, we love those.
There are a couple tells.
High Fae look like humans, but they're all gorgeous, which is what makes me think of Edward from Twilight. For
100%,
sure.
yeah.
But Tamlin is like, to me, I think he looks like Thor. That's what I've always pictured.
That's fair, yeah.
But
I'm trying to think what I pictured. Yeah, I think Chris Hemsworth is probably the closest approximation of what I was thinking as well. But he's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
I could never see past to his face because they always described this mask.
I know, but it's really, so he is wearing a mask. We'll get into that in a second, but it's just like a masquerade mask.
Yeah.
But I also thought that. So in my mind, when I first read it, I just kind of pictured a blur.
Yeah, same.
Like The Sims when they get into like the shower.
Exactly.
Like,
it was just like really crisp
faceless.
mask, very blurry background, blonde hair.
Yeah, who knows what he looks like? I don't know. But they're immortal, so Tamlin looks like he's like in his 20s, but he's actually like a bajillion years old. Gross.
I love how obsessed fantasy is with like ancient creatures falling in love with 20-year-olds.
Oh my god, we should do a review on Twilight. Okay, comment below.
Reread Twilight as an adult.
Comment below if you want us to do a video on Twilight.
I
We will.
would love to reread Twilight just to go through and go, what is happening here?
What the So I always pictured Tamlin looking like Thor because he's got golden hair and like a chiseled jaw, you know, as they all do. And we meet Lucian, yes, who is his emissary, but also his friend. Lucian has red hair, and under his mask, she can see this like scar that goes through his eye,
Lucian.
and one of his eyes has like a gold orb that goes bzzz as it turns around.
Lucian is really one of the only things that carries you through this next section of the book.
That's true. So she shows up to the manor. Wolfy, monster, lion, elk guy, whatever he is, he is actually a hot fae. Then there's Lucian. She's there. But if you're wondering why the wolf was in the forest, who was actually Andrus, which was one of Tamlin's friends, if you're wondering why he was in the woods, is we find out that it's because there is a blight in Prithian that's making the magic do weird things. And 49 years ago, something happened when they were all at a masquerade, and the masks are stuck to their faces. So Lucian, his mask looks like a fox. Tamlin's is like vines and stuff because he's the High Lord of the Spring Court. Even the staff and servants in this place, in the court, have the masks on. Can you imagine going to a masquerade mask and having like a Phantom of the Opera type mask on your face for the next 50 years?
I also love to imagine that someone was like, oh, I forgot to get a mask. And then, and then was just like, oh, it's just one night. And then has to wear it. Like, it's just hideous.
No, like you decide to be goofy and silly and like wear a clown mask. Like, oh, this is going to be so funny.
Oh, this is going to be so funny for tonight.
And you're still wearing it 49 years later.
That joke is not good.
My sensory issues would never. Oh my God. The manor is nice. It's full of so like pretty staff, incredible food, servants who like wait on Feyre hand and foot. The main one that takes care of her is named Alice. We'll learn more about her later. It seems like a great place to live.
Yeah.
TBH.
I want to go live there.
And according to Tamlin, Feyre is here but not a prisoner.
Correct.
Like
she can't leave.
She's
not a prisoner.
If she leaves his protection, because fairies hate humans, she's gonna be killed for sure.
She can't go back to the human lands. That's like part of the treaty, right?
Yeah.
Like she can't go back to the human lands, and he like warns her if she goes outside of his household that she's at risk.
Yeah, exactly. For all intents and purposes, she's here and a slave. She's stuck here. But Tamlin does tell her that he's taking care of her family. He says something like, you really think I would take your family's only source of food and income and not replace it? Yes, I do.
I don't know if you've... I don't know.
Offended by
Let's go back to your entrance.
Yeah, let's talk about how we met. Our meet cute. Wasn't super cute.
Not super cute.
Fairies can't lie, or at least that's what Feyre thinks. Remember that for later. But every waking moment, she is thinking of how to get back to her family.
Yeah.
Because she made a promise to her mother on her deathbed that she would take care of her family. I think she was 9. She might even have been 8. That is so much pressure for a kid. Like, I think Nesta was a teenager. Like, I'm really confused by that.
Who's the youngest daughter's name? Or the
Elaine.
Elaine. It's so funny to me that, like, Elaine just gets a pass on everything. Yeah. They're like, oh, she's just so sweet and cute and meh. Like, she's just a sweet little baby child. It's like, well, yeah, Feyre probably could have been 2, but she was required to take on all of this responsibility.
Honestly, the way they talk about Elaine makes me think, like, does she have an intellectual disability?
That's what I was gonna say!
They baby her. They infantilize her. Like, she is just so sweet, and she doesn't help Feyre, but Feyre is mad at Nesta for not helping. And as she should be, because Nesta isn't helping. Yeah. But Elaine is also not helping. She's just like, oh, she's just so sweet. But, you know.
She's just too soft.
I'm like, what do you mean? Get some calluses on your hands. It's fine. Okay, so what we need to talk about is Lucian's, you know, Tamlin's bestie, hates Feyre. He is not happy that she's there.
Not happy.
He's rude, condescending, and just overall unpleasant to be around. And she knows that.
But in a witty way.
In a funny way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fun. She knows that. And she thinks if she gets closer to him, maybe he'll let her go. Yeah. Like, maybe he hates humans so much that he'll let her go. So.
Not a bad plan.
She goes on patrol with him, and he's like, sorry, Toots, there's no way. Like, there's no out of the treaty. And when he mentions the Blight, he mentions a she that everyone is afraid of. Ooh.
Some may call it foreshadowing.
Feminism. Foreshadowing. Yes, that's it. He also mentions a creature called a Suriel, which will answer any questions if you capture it. Suddenly, Lucian freezes and tells Feyre to like look ahead, don't move, don't react. She can feel something near her, but she doesn't look at it. It's called a bog. Once you look at it, it can kill you. Sarah J. Maas did actually a really great job in this section. I found it genuinely terrifying. Kind of like Bird Box. Do you guys remember?
Yes.
You remember that movie?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, the scene with Sandra Bullock and the kids in the boat blindfolded.
So stressful.
Literally traumatized me. I can't watch it.
So stressful.
I can't watch it again. But here's the section where she talks about it. My blood froze as a creeping, leeching cold lurched by. I couldn't see anything, just a vague shimmering in the corner of my vision, but my horse stiffened beneath me. I willed my face into blankness. Even the balmy spring woods seemed to recoil, to wither and freeze. The cold thing whispered past, circling. I could see nothing, but I could feel it. And in the back of my mind, an ancient, hollow voice whispered, I will grind your bones between my claws. I will drink your marrow. I will feast on your flesh. I am what you fear. I am what you dread. Look at me. No! No!
Blanket, no.
Okay, yeah. So I just really like that section. I thought it was really good. Okay, so we go back to the manor. Lucian's like, Tam, you got a problem. There's a bog out there.
Yeah, I gotta get him.
So that night, Feyre goes out into the garden because she sees her father out there. And she's like, did my father come to rescue me?
Wouldn't that have been nice?
Wouldn't that have been nice? No, doofus. It's a fae. It's a lesser fae trying to eat your face.
Obviously.
Tamlin's there, and it's called a puka. So the puka transforms into anything you desire to lure you to your death. Man!
So it's like a land siren.
If this isn't another great reason why Feyre should stop trying to leave. It's crazy out there.
It makes sense, but it also is like, get it together. You know, on both hands, where you're like, yes, of course she wants to get back to her family, and if you're a prisoner, you're gonna take any chance that you have.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking at someone that you think is your family. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, you're like, well, you're magic. Magic's
I know.
Everywhere.
Well, and
you've already seen that this is not just an empty threat.
I love her, and I also very much understand. Like, I can sympathize with the fact that her entire life just turned upside down and she wants to go home. Mm-hmm. But also, can we use our noggins for just a second and realize your family's taken care of?
Yeah.
You just gotta accept it. You're here.
Well, I think at some point she also says, like, why would I believe that he's telling the truth about that? About, like, that her family's taken care of. Oh, because she
fairies can't lie.
Sorry.
That's why she believes it. Spoiler alert! They can. Okay, so Feyre, we have a little romantic moment. Feyre helps patch Tamlin up because he got injured when he killed the bog.
Oh no, the big scary monster.
Also, Feyre is nosy, and I like that about her. She's been eavesdropping a lot.
Yeah.
And she overhears Lucian say, for someone with a heart of stone, yours is certainly soft these days. Oh, his heart is growing. It's no longer 3 sizes too small.
Oh.
So cute. We already mentioned this at the beginning, but Feyre can't read or write.
Yeah.
And that is so sad to me because her sisters got the education that they needed, and poor little Feyre basically became the sole breadwinner as a child. Mm-hmm. She didn't get to be a kid, and now she's so embarrassed and ashamed that she can't read. When I read that part, I was like, baby.
It's so sad. It's
like,
so
it's
sad.
Okay. And Tamlin says something sweet when he offers to help her write a letter to her family, and he says, why should I mock you for a shortcoming that isn't your fault?
100%.
I really loved that.
Absolutely.
Good job, Tamlin.
Absolutely.
Thumbs up. Okay, so remember the Suriel that Lucian told Feyre about? The one that will answer any question. He tells her how to capture one, but like in a way that he's not really. He's like, if someone were to capture a Suriel, this is how you would do it, which is funny. And he says, if someone were to do that, I might be close by to help if, you know, anything were to go wrong. And Feyre is scrappy as hell, so she captures the Suriel in the matter of like 2 hours. Like
This is something that comes back over and over where you're like, this is a magical creature that people hunt constantly.
Yeah.
And they like tell you that people are trying, like fairies constantly try and capture this thing, and no one can do it. No one can capture the cereal. And she does it immediately.
But I also believe it because it's like a Katniss moment. Like, she
fair.
has been hunting
Yeah.
for her livelihood. So,
That's
like,
fair.
I get it. But also, I was like, wanna just take a couple hours? It just took an afternoon?
Just an afternoon.
Come on. And the Suriel gives Feyre the tea, the lowdown on the Fey world.
We
and so here's what we learn. The Suriel tells her that there is another fairy world across the ocean called Hybern, and it's ruled by a king.
Yep.
But no humans exist there anymore because they killed them all. Oh, and he has a throne made of bones. Human
Gross.
bone. I don't think this king likes humans very much.
What?
That's what I'm getting. This is, context clues. He's not happy with the treaty. He hates humans. He thinks that they should be eradicated. So, like, he does not think the treaty should be happening. He has tried to wage war with the humans before. So we are upping the stakes. This isn't just a fairy problem. Like, this blight that Tamlin was telling her about will affect humans. So Feyre's like, okay, so what can be done about the blight? What should I do? And the Suriel's like, stay with the High Lord.
Stay with the High Lord.
Which is just like, okay, boring. But also, Feyre is just like, Tamlin's the High Lord?
Tamlin's the High Lord?
I don't know. I thought it was obvious, but yeah, she was shocked.
In one of the descriptions of the before we meet Tamlin, when she's still in the human world, is that there's like this group of people that like worship fairies, and that their like myths about them are that they all live in these like gorgeous palaces and they're all super wealthy and super well off. So her having like no idea what the like station of wealth would be in like distributed wealth in the fairy realm kind of makes sense to me. Where like,
okay, yeah,
if you just assume everyone lives in like palaces like this, then and would have staff, then like,
okay,
but I guess there has
really
to be a
good point.
servant class too. So I don't know.
Because I didn't talk about that because I just didn't really see the relevance, but it's true. They talk about it at the beginning that there are kind of this like cult of humans that worship fairies. I think it's
I
a
want
fun
her to
little...
go into that so much more.
Yes.
I love a cult.
Anyway, guess who shows up while Feyre is chatting with the Suriel? More fairy monsters.
Of course, naturally.
God damn, this place is dangerous.
She's often, I mean, and they talk about the blight like weaken the borders so that Tamlin has to go out and get all of these horrible creatures that are like roaming constantly. So they set up that it's like understandable that she would encounter so many awful things. Also, how did you imagine the Suriel?
I imagined the Suriel kind of humanoid, but like a really creepy old lady.
You imagine like a full human-sized person.
Yeah, what did you think?
I thought of like,
Please
just
tell
realized
me,
I
what
have
did you
no
think?
idea what this actually looks like. I imagined it to be like a little creature, like squirrel-sized. And it was just this like tiny little thing. Not that it looked like a squirrel, but that's the size of it. Most of the characters in this series I pictured entirely different than how they're described.
And that's okay. That's okay. Okay, the Suriel. Here it is. A face that looked like it had been crafted from dried, weather-worn bone, its skin either forgotten or discarded, a lipless mouth and 2 long teeth held by blackened gums, slitted holes for nostrils and eyes. Eyes that were nothing more than swirling pits of milky white, the white of death, the white of sickness, the white of clean-picked corpses.
Beautiful description.
Oh,
what is the size of this creature?
terrifying. No.
I guess the assumption is that it is humanoid. I just did not go that way.
I mean, it says it remained sitting, its bare, gnarled feet caught in my snares.
I did not assume it was a humanoid, personally.
But you thought it was like as big as a squirrel?
I thought it was small. I thought that was part of the reason it was hard to catch.
No, that's the reason. Because to me, if it was a squirrel, it would be easy to catch. You just put a little...
Have you tried to
mouse
catch a
trap.
squirrel?
Have you?
Yes!
Why have you done that?
As a kid, you didn't chase squirrels?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that was a me thing then.
This place is dangerous. So, as far as I remember, the Blight is making the baddies, the bad fae, just a little more confident.
Yeah.
Like, because I think they're just,
It weakens Tamlin's magic as
Yeah,
the High
they know
Lord.
he's
he
weaker.
can get in, yeah.
And they think Feyre is looking like a tasty snack, so they're lurking. And these monsters are called the Naga.
Yeah.
And they're made of, quote, shadows, hate, and rot.
So good.
I love
Such a
that
good
they
monster.
did that.
Do you play D&D?
No,
Okay.
but Taylor does.
Oh, nice. I play D&D. I love D&D. I think the Naga is an amazing monster for D&D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Feyre screams and Lucian doesn't come. Asshole! Okay, she frees the Suriel she frees the Suriel because, you know, she's nice. And then fights the Naga. Feyre shoots one, stabs the other. Literally, Feyre is such a badass. But just in the nick of time, Tamlin shows up because she's about to get eaten by the third one. I was annoyed by that. Because I was like, she was almost done, all right? She was good. Okay, no, he saved her. Woo! And we get this, like, really cute, like, oh, you're hurt moment where, like, Feyre's tending to Tamlin's wounds and, like...
Once again.
She gets saved by the Mr. Wolfie Fae. The romance is building. We
are reading Beauty and the Beast.
This is the second time I've read this book, but I'm going to give you my thoughts from the first time I read it. The romance felt a little forced to me. Tamlin is genuinely so grumpy and off-putting. I mean, I guess I haven't really described that as we've been going through this. Rightfully so. He's got a mask stuck to his face and there's a blight and he's been alive for like a bajillion years. So he's tired, okay? He's described as so handsome. Like, look at this guy. He's haughty, okay? But there's something about him that is just so flat. You're so boring.
Looking back, having read the series, I absolutely agree with you. When I read it, I was like, yeah. I was 100% in. And I'll admit to it. I
just wonder if the reason we liked little Tim Tam was that it was more of the fantasy and less about him. The fantasy of being whisked away and saved and going to this rich place where this guy is going to take care of you. You know, a woman who's been taking care of herself her whole life. He's like, no, let me do it, you know? That fantasy. I wonder if that is why I vibed with it the first time.
Maybe, yeah. I also am such a gullible reader that you like introduce anything. You're like, this is how you're supposed to feel. I'm like, done. This is how I feel.
Like, yes. And isn't that a great way to read though?
Yeah.
No strong opinions. You just like soaking it up and then at the end you can have those opinions. I love an enemies to lovers or like a grumpy sunshine like romance trope.
But the enemies to lovers can't be like someone is the worst and someone else is good and they just need to meet in the middle. That's why Pride and Prejudice is so good, is that they just miss each other. Like they make assumptions about each other. It's not that either of them are like doing anything morally corrupt and then they end up together anyway. Yeah. Which is, I think, a lot of enemies to lovers falls into that trap.
Pride and Prejudice is a really good example of like the misunderstood trope being done well.
100%. It's expertly done.
Because they're misunderstood in the way that they perceive each other, not like I misunderstood a phrase that you said and then the whole book hinges on that. I hate that. But here's my thought. This book is so beautifully written that I think that I, and maybe a lot of readers, are just kind of able to ignore Tamlin's just kind of, I don't know, like, you know, like when he said, you know, why would I mock you for something that isn't your own doing? Like, he's saying good things. Like, I'm not saying that he's a terrible love interest, but it just felt kind of just like a white piece of bread. Some
that
toast.
Is not, absolutely. You know? That totally makes sense.
But that being said, I have known a lot of people who hated Tamlin so much they stopped reading the book.
That is also common experience, yeah.
Yeah. It is true that if you read ACOTAR, you've got to commit to reading the first and second one. And I think that is a huge buy-in for a fantasy book. I don't think that's a fair ask of a reader, but I really love them. And I do think people should read them.
That's the thing, is the second one is so phenomenal. It is 100% worth getting through the first one. Even if you immediately dislike Tamlin and the whole situation and like all of the things that we'll get into, the second one is so phenomenal. It's so good.
And then like feeling the connections that she had between the first one, it all makes sense. Okay, anyway, back to the story. So the romance is building with Tamlin and Feyre. He asks her if anyone has ever cared for her, which is like so sad, but also like rude.
It's a very rude question.
Because it's like, has anyone ever cared about you? That's like something a mean person.
That is
but what he's saying is, have they cared for you?
That's 100% one of those things. It's like the way you read that, the way the tone is in that sentence changes wildly the reaction. And her reaction is like, clearly this is like a very tender moment, not a bratty moment.
Yeah. No, because I think she has a realization where she's like, oh my God, like no. And I want to bundle Feyre up like a little burrito. Yeah. Like I want to protect her. She would probably kill me for trying because she's so scrappy, but like I just love her. And
I don't think she would. I think she'd be like, what's going on? And then just melt.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I can picture it now. She'd be like, what? That's what I would do, actually. By the way, at this point, this is when Lucien reveals, yeah, fairies can lie. That was just a human urban legend. Iron also does nothing. Nope. That's another thing that they thought would protect them. But the thing that is real is the ash arrows.
Yeah.
So that do work against the fae.
That do
Score.
Work. They have one weakness.
Yeah, just the ash arrows. We also learn what Tamlin meant when he said that her family was like well taken care of. He glamored them and their memories. So he used magic. So they believe a long lost wealthy aunt needed Feyre to take care of her. And I think that that's also like really hard for Feyre too, because on one hand she's like, okay, they really are okay, and they don't even remember that I'm gone, but also they don't even remember like what happened or what I've sacrificed for them.
Yeah. Oh, I would have a really hard time with that.
Yeah.
I would personally resent Tamlin a lot.
I would be like, why didn't you just like traumatize him a little bit?
Just a titch.
Just a little bit. Just like give him some guilt.
Just a little bit.
Feyre then asks for paints, which I think is a big sign that she's beginning to trust Tamlin.
Absolutely.
Like she's showing vulnerability. Now, this part really actually gave me chills. Definitely because of the writing, but also because the graphic audio performance did so much. So Tamlin brings in a dying fairy that keeps screaming and moaning. She took my wings. She took my wings. Actually gives me chills literally while I'm talking about it. Whoever she is ripped them off. So the wounds are too big to save this random fae.
That description is horrific.
Yeah.
It's so graphic.
And I loved how jarring it was.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, because we're in the spring court. Like I just imagine just so idyllic, flowers everywhere. Yeah. She's starting to have this romantic connection. And then we're getting these big moments, like when she almost gets killed by the Naga. And now with this fae, and I just really like that Sarah J. Maas gave us that. Like, we have a little romantic moment, and then, oh my god, we're back to the stakes and how high they are. The wounds are too big to save him, so Feyre just stays with him while he dies.
It's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And it's also, correct me if I'm wrong, but in this moment, she's like, everyone has this moment of realizing that this person who hates fairies will stay with a fairy that she supposedly hates, just while they die, because it comforts them.
Yeah.
You know, that she has that amount of empathy and that she's gone over the wall in a way.
Yeah.
Of like, you have a general idea of like, this is something that I hate and despise, but then when you're faced with like person to person struggle, that you're going to be empathetic to it. And I think that's a great character moment for Feyre.
Oh, it's so good because we start to see Feyre not only feeling and showing compassion to this fae, but that she's feeling like a lot of guilt about killing Andrus. So even though she's almost been a fairy's lunch like 5 times already, I think that really solidified the guilt that she was feeling. So she genuinely apologizes to Tamlin. And I wanted to take Feyre's face in my hands and be like, it's not your fault.
It's so not your fault, babe.
Am I falling in love with Feyre? Maybe. Maybe. I'm not falling in love with Tamlin, but... So we learn a little bit more about Lucien at this point. This is really, really interesting. So he's originally from the Autumn Court. He's the youngest of 7, but this court doesn't inherit titles by oldest like the other courts do. It's whoever's the strongest. It's very cutthroat. But Lucien, not only was he the youngest, but he just didn't have any desire to be the High Lord, so he never fought for it. This part I actually don't understand unless Lucien's father is literally a psychopathic serial killer. But Lucien was in love with a fairy his dad didn't approve of, and he killed her in front of Lucien.
Yeah.
If it was a human, I could be like, oh, fae hate humans so much. Yeah. But it was just a fae that he didn't approve of.
Yeah.
That's so sad. So Lucien ran away from the Autumn Court, went to the Spring Court, where he was friends with Tamlin. 3 of his brothers chased after him, but Lucien and Tamlin killed 2 of them. So Lucien is not invited for Thanksgiving dinner.
No.
Anymore.
No.
2 brothers gone. Thought that was interesting. So back to the Spring Court. Tamlin, he's giving boyfriend behavior.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The second that he sees any empathy in her towards fairies, he's like, okay,
this is my chance.
I have an in.
He gets Feyre paints. He shows her the gallery. Our sweet little artist Feyre weeps at the art that she sees. And she's fallen in love. She really is. She starts painting every day for weeks. She's finally accepting her life at the Spring Court, but she does feel guilty about it. But that's basically how she's, spending her days. Painting, meals with Tamlin and Lucien, sometimes going on patrol with Lucien. It's pretty chill. But as time goes on, she learns more about the Fae world. Okay, this is interesting. Tamlin mentions his parents' mating bond, which is not what you think, okay?
Let's clarify right now, not in the Omegaverse.
We're going back to Twilight, though, because this is basically fairies can imprint on each other.
Yes.
I wrote down, where the hell have you been, Loca? Okay.
That's so accurate, though.
Yeah, but apparently it's very rare. So it's interesting. It doesn't happen to every single, like, adult fae.
No.
Fairies get married all the time, but occasionally fairies find their mate, and it's, like, an incredibly powerful bond. I do appreciate that she says faes get married all the time, and they're perfectly happy.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's extra powerful. So, okay, I can get behind it. But it is very much like, I think you're saying this because we're going to see this later.
Yeah.
So it does seem like each court of Prythian is like pretty isolated from the other courts. It doesn't seem like they have friends in other courts. I assume that the High Lords are all civil with each other because they have to be. Like, they have to interact.
To some extent, yeah.
But it seems like, at least from what we see here in this first book, the courts kind of mind their own business. Although now they've all got the same problem, which is the blight. So the spring court, this is fun, has this ceremony called Callan Mai.
Oh, we reached it.
Which is a ritual that regenerates the magic in the lands for the upcoming year. So this is very important, happens every year. Tamlin gets all grumpy and annoying and tells Feyre to go in her room and not come out until the morning. No explanation, just like, because I said so, go do it. As if Feyre would ever do that. Like, you've piqued her curiosity.
Absolutely.
She's obviously going out there to explore. For sure, this is dumb because fairies can smell humans. So she's absolutely an idiot. But if Tamlin had explained it, maybe she would have stayed in her room. But he gets controlling sometimes. And our girl Feyre is not a fan of that.
No.
Neither am I. Okay, so what do you think happens, guess, when Feyre walks anywhere close to the party happening outside? Like, what happens? She doesn't even get, like, 20 feet. 3 fairies come up. She's almost lunch. Like, they are like, oh, hi. Like, what are you doing here? She's about to, like, get eaten. They're trying to take her away. She's not even close enough to the crowd where she could, like, yell or anything. Like, that's how bad idea
And, like,
this was.
drawing more attention to yourself in the situation might not be helpful. That might actually be more hurtful.
Exactly. But a fairy shows up and scares them away.
And what does he say?
Hottie.
What does he
hottie
say?
with a body. She calls him the most beautiful man she's ever seen.
Like, she's about to be attacked by these 3 fairies and then hears something, looks over, and the immediate reaction is, this is the most beautiful man I've ever seen.
Literally, that's how it's written. It says, everything about the stranger radiated sensual grace and ease. High fae, no doubt. His short black hair gleamed like a raven's feathers, offsetting his pale skin and blue eyes so deep they were violet, even in the firelight. They twinkled with amusement as he beheld me. That's cute. When he sees her with the 3 fairies, he says, there you are, I've been looking for you. That's got me giggling. You know, she says, I came here with my friends. And he's like, who are your friends? And she's like, 2 ladies. And he's like, more information? And she's not going to answer him. But before they even have, like, a conversation, Lucian shows up. So he dips.
Yeah.
Lucian is pissed. Like, imagine the Howler that gets sent to Ron.
Yeah.
Like, he's like grabbing her by the ear practically. Like, how could you do this? Like, this is ridiculous. Do you know how long your father works to prepare for this party? So he hauls her ass back to the manor and explains the great rite. Okay, so this is how it works. Basically, the High Lord of the court, Tamlin, allows, quote, great and terrible magic to enter his body. It turns him into the hunter. In Pitch Perfect, where she's like, the hunter.
He's a hunter.
And she's like, you call it a he? And she's like, yeah.
I love that so much.
Hunter.
The hunter.
And he chooses a maiden that he will couple with. While he's a hunter, he can only think of finding the maiden. I'll be the first to say it. That is hot. That's hot. I was like, okay, let's get into this.
Also, at this point, I've been told that this book is spicy. We're what, 300 pages in?
Oh yeah.
Not a single bit of spice.
No.
Let's get to it.
A wee bit of like sexual tension, but that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
So tons of women line up and hope he will choose them as the maiden.
Weird.
And
I would never do that.
I guess after the High Lord chooses a maiden, the other men can too.
I forgot about that.
So Lucian is like, good thing you weren't there or Tamlin would claim you. And Feyre's like, oh.
Really?
Rats.
Interesting.
Okay, but in the middle of the night, Feyre leaves her room to get a snack.
The strangest behavior.
She's like, it's over. Obviously, I can do that.
I was
even
told
though...
it was all night long, but it's fine. I need a sip of water.
Yeah. No, I literally think she gets a cookie. She goes to the kitchen and get a cookie. Anyway, but who does she find? Tamlin. What? Sweaty, shirtless, panting. And he says, when he couldn't find her, he had to claim another. Okay, hold on. I have to read this word.
This is a giggling, kicking your feet kind of moment.
She asked me not to be gentle with her either. He snarled, his teeth bright in the moonlight. He brought his lips to my ear. I would have been gentle with you, though.
See, it's moments like these that you're like, how do you not a little bit?
That's fun.
A little bit.
That's pretty fun. So things are heating up, okay? We're finally, like, really getting some sexual tension.
Finally.
But I don't think that Tamlin understands Feyre fully. So she asks, is there anything I can do to help with the masks, the magic, everything? And Tamlin just says, I want you here where I can look after you, where I can come home and know you're here, painting and safe. And that's a nice sentiment, but what came to my mind was, a gilded cage is still a cage. And Feyre is strong, determined. She's a fighter. She should learn how to rest and to paint and like be taken care of. She deserves that. But she doesn't want to be coddled. So I didn't like that very much. Like, I don't think he understands her. So this is the funny part. Tamlin takes away the glamours he put on Feyre.
This is one of the funniest moments in the entire book.
So funny. She didn't know that there was any glamours there. So suddenly she can see tons of servants.
Warning.
50 or 60 servants. Like, they're everywhere. And she's like, where do all these people come from? And they're like, we've always been here. And Feyre has the realization that I think is hilarious that she spent time sneaking around thinking she was alone, but Faye were probably just like 5 feet away, like giggling.
I love this idea so much. It is so funny. It's so funny that Tamlin does this without warning her. Doesn't ever tell her there are secret invisible servants everywhere, which would absolutely, like, if you're trying to keep someone from like going out, that's like the first thing that you would say.
Exactly. Okay, then things are escalating. Feyre just casually finds a head in the gardens. It was branded with the Night Court's sigil, so Tamlin says that he thinks it's the High Lord of the Night Court's idea of a joke, which is
horrifying.
Feyre doesn't have too long to think about the head in the garden. If I didn't mention that, there's a head in the garden. But they got a spring solstice party.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the entire book.
It is really fun. She gets smashed
on
on fairy wine. I guess it affects humans differently than fairies. I think for fairies, it's just like normal wine. For her, she's partying.
Yeah.
Like, she's dancing for hours.
Yeah.
And she doesn't remember a lot. Because she doesn't remember a lot, she dances for hours. She snuggles up to Tamlin. And then they, as my 5-year-old says, smoochy kiss.
They smoochy kiss.
That's a full
and it's
smoochy
a
kiss.
good one.
In the grass. Feyre says it is the happiest moment of her life.
Which is so sweet and so sad.
So sweet and so sad. So they have that. That's very cute. The next day during dinner, someone shows up and they only have like 5 seconds before that person walks in. So immediately Lucien like shoves Feyre in the corner of the room to protect her.
And glamours her, right? So that she is supposed to be seen.
Yes. And it's the hottie with a body.
It is the most beautiful man we've ever seen.
It's Rhysand. We have a name. Tamlin calls him Amarantha's whore. The most beautiful man that Feyre's ever seen shows up. And he is, get this, the High Lord of the Night Court. So the severed head, that was a gift from him. So that's scary. But Feyre still thinks he's a very handsome villain. So it's very relatable. She's like, oh, that was from you? Oh, damn. Like, she's so into him.
Yeah,
she can't stop talking about how handsome he is.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay.
Also, when you get through the second book, reread this scene again. It is wild, your take on it.
So fun.
It changes radically.
So Feyre is hidden, but the guys forgot to hide her dinner plate. So he takes one look at her dinner plate and he's like, someone's there. So Lucien is like, this is my betrothed. Just like blurts that out. Rhysand is like, doesn't believe that for 1 minute. He asks Feyre for her name and Feyre, like being smart, like acting on her feet, says a random name from her village.
Yeah.
Claire Better. Remember, Tamlin begs Rhysand to not tell Amarantha. This is the infamous she that we've been hearing about. So finally we know the she that everyone's afraid of is named Amarantha. But he begs him not to tell Amarantha about Feyre. And Rhysand makes him beg on his knees. Ugh. And Feyre is mad that he's making her man crawl on the floor. She's like, ew.
Gross.
Don't make him do that. Like, ugh. But after Rhysand is satisfied that Tamlin has begged enough, he disappears.
And that's a dick move.
What, Rhysand?
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. Tamlin pretty quickly after this happens is like, I'm sending you home. Shit's getting real. This is
where I have such huge issues with this
Okay,
book.
we have to talk about this. So, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Feyre and Tamlin.
Finally!
They do it. It's soft, it's romantic, it's sweet. For their relationship, I think it made sense. In any other book, I feel like after this amount of time, it would be more passionate, more like intense, but it was pretty soft.
It's very soft and it's very sweet. I think that goes along with like the spring vibes of it all.
That's true.
And the healing process that Feyre is going through, that like there's kind of a sense of a lot of sex scenes that they're like a hunt, being hunted kind of feeling. Yeah. And this is very much like a very sweet, tender thing.
It is. And she does kind of like take the lead at the beginning. Yeah. And again, I like that. I am completely ruined by the romance smut that I read now, so I don't particularly think it's anything salacious.
No, and this is another thing. I will die on this hill. This is not smut.
Yeah.
This series is not smut.
No.
Because smut is loose plot points around sex scenes. If you have to get 300 pages into a book before there's a sex scene, doesn't count as a smut.
I think that there is a sliding scale 100%. From erotica to romance, okay? And on this scale, there is, on one end, Amish romance. That's a thing, okay? You could read those. Christian romance, right?
Yes.
And then on the other complete side of it is straight up erotica. Usually when you're talking about straight up erotica, smut, I would say that is like, sometimes they're just stories. Like, that's the whole plot, right? There's a huge scale, okay? Huge
it absolutely is a scale.
So this is definitely fantasy romance, and
100%.
I believe the next few books get like spicier.
They do.
But the romance is the most important part.
100%. And there's a ton of world building in all of them.
Yeah.
Which is really great. And I personally far more enjoy the like world building of it all, especially if I'm going into a series where I know like these are thick books, like these are, I hope that there's, you know, some development in them.
Yeah.
But it's just funny to me when I hear people talking about how salacious these books are, and I'm like, oh, I grew up on AO3, so
we're ruined. Oh my god. This happens on 248. Like, yeah, so we're almost 300 pages into this book. I don't want to like out myself as a capital H whore.
H.
But, you know, little w, capital H. But I will say that if I had read 300 pages of this book and gotten to this point and it was a fade to black, I would have been mad.
I would have been furious.
I would have been mad because you, as an author, are asking us to invest in this relationship.
Yeah.
And so if I'm like truly involved and believing it, to have such a big moment in their relationship happen off screen, I'm upset.
Absolutely.
I don't find it anything particularly salacious, this sex scene, but when I first read it, I did. I was like, oh my god, people write this in books? This is porn.
It's funny because I grew up reading fan fiction where I was like, oh yes, Tumblr, online, this kind of thing. Yeah. That's totally allowed. This is like printed books.
Do they know
these are like, this is literature. You know what I mean? Like, I still had that separation in my head about it. And so reading such graphic sex scenes, like it's not, again, I don't think it's salacious. I don't think it's anything like particularly spicy within like sex in general.
Yeah.
But having such detailed descriptions of it, I was surprised by. That was a newer experience for me when it comes to like full romance books. This also comes to my biggest complaint about this series is, where are the gay people?
Where are the gays?
We get so much magic.
No gays?
Not a single gay? Not for... What? Where are they?
You know what? We get real close to having some fairy orgies. What? No bisexuals? Come on. Nothing? Yeah, that's true. That's true. From the sex scene, there is a part. We were a tangle of limbs and teeth, and I tore at his clothes until they were on the floor, then tore at his skin until I marked him down his back, his arms. His claws were out. This is a...
So funny.
It's just a little bit of a monster romance, just in case. That part shocked me. I'm reading, I'm like, ooh,
claws out?
Yes, claws are out. What? What do you mean? Like, they're being, you know, sliding down my thighs. I would put those away, please. Okay, so anyway, Feyre leaves the next day. Lucien is pissed.
This makes no sense.
I know. He says something to Tamlin like, you're literally not even going to give her a few more days.
This entire section makes no sense.
It makes no sense once you learn about the end, and it makes no sense in the moment.
Exactly. This is where I get to like, Sarah, my dear friend Sarah,
had
a great beginning And she was like, and I know how this ends. We're just going to force these puzzle pieces together over the next one chapter. And I just want to skip to the end. I ain't got nothing in between. So we're just going to go on over here.
Tamlin does say, I love you to Feyre when they were making love. And then when she's in the carriage, like going to be sent back, he says it again. But Feyre feels it, but doesn't say it back. I think she's like, I don't want to say it if I'm leaving.
I also think both of those times is a weird time to say it.
Yeah.
For the first time, when you're having sex with someone the first time, that feels a very in the moment, passionate
it does.
feeling.
I don't know if I believe you.
While that person is leaving forever, supposedly. Yeah. That also doesn't feel very real.
Yeah. So Feyre is going back home, but the carriage takes her to this like really fancy manor. And she's like, what is this? Great. There's gardens, there's servants. Yeah, that's her new family's house. So when Tamlin said he took care of her family, he was not around because he made them like uber wealthy and healed her dad's leg.
So nice. So great.
Yeah. So he's happier because he's rich and he can, walk around he's got his groove back. Elaine is so excited to see Feyre, which is cute. I don't feel like we got a lot from her at the beginning. No. But Elaine is just so happy. Like she's working in the garden. And I mean, she's really, really cute.
Is she a cartoon character? 100%.
Yeah, she doesn't
Do I still really like her? Yeah.
Nesta keeps like side-eyeing Feyre, like glaring at her in a way different than Feyre was expecting.
Seems to know something. Like you get the sense that she knows something.
Yes, but Elaine even says to Feyre, like, Nesta tried to visit you. Like she was gone for a whole week. So Nesta's suspicious. Oh, and while she's in the village, she hears of a house that burned down with the entire family inside. Remember this. So basically, Feyre is home, but this is not a happy reunion on Feyre's part because she keeps thinking about how the Suriel told her to stay with the High Lord. Right. So she's worried that this was all a horrible mistake and Tamlin needs her. But back at the house, Papa plans a ball in Feyre's honor and Nesta isn't interested in the ball. And this is Nesta, the oldest sister. She's the one most accustomed to wealth, like the way that they grew up, and she's
trained for it
the
too.
Most bitter that her father lost it all. So we would expect to see her like living it up as a socialite, but
you think
she's quiet.
Nesta is determined to be miserable. She just is.
There's so much about Nesta that like she's like that. And I'm still interested.
Exactly. And that's what's so good about her.
Yeah. Because that kind of person immediately like, I'm exhausted. I don't want to hear about them. Yeah. But God, she's got an
There's
edge.
something going on with her.
So Nesta reveals to Feyre that the glamour didn't work on her. Nesta
Which is such a huge thing.
She's so stubborn that she literally deflected fairy magic.
And the fact that she's not the main character, that she has this like magical ability that like can deflect magic and isn't the main character, you're like, what's going on with her?
Or she is literally like so committed to being miserable. Yeah. So committed, like stubborn, like hard-headed that it went that deep.
As someone very much motivated by spite, I really appreciate the like, how dare you think that you're going to take my memories away from me? Even if they're miserable. Even if you give me what I want, how dare you take that away from me?
Oh, yeah. She's like, you're not going to control me.
No.
So instantly, I'm way more invested in learning about Nesta.
Yeah. And that's that's the only positive of this section.
So Papa casually mentions that he wants to buy the Better land when it goes up for sale. The house that burned down. Better. Claire Better. The name that Feyre gave Rhys. Yeah. This is not a coincidence. So Feyre is getting the hell out of there. She tells Nesta, like, in a flurry, she's like, hire guards, like, run the moment shit starts getting weird. Yeah. Elaine and her dad are like, what? Like, they're at breakfast. And Feyre just dips, like, so fast. Nesta tells Feyre to not come back to Prythian and the fam will be okay. Yeah. This was the coolest parallel from the beginning, I think. Because when Feyre was leaving with Wolfie Tam and her dad said not to come back, it's a parallel, but it didn't hit the same way. Yeah. Because he never saw Feyre for who she actually was. Right. Instead of responding to Feyre in the way a loving father should, grateful, appreciative, validating, like, I see you, I appreciate what you do, I love you. He internalized it all into shame. And I think that's why Nesta saw him as such a pathetic man.
Absolutely.
Because he could have done more, but his shame was so deep it was paralyzing him.
Yeah.
And Nesta, who is now in on the secret.
But Nesta also, like, she was like, he's not even doing anything. While also not doing anything.
Oh, yeah. I just think that for Nesta, that glamour didn't work on her. So this was a huge traumatizing moment of, my sister is gone. I never got to tell her that I appreciate her. And now I'm the only one who knows that she's gone. Now Nesta gets it. And they're having, like, genuine conversations for the first time. time. And she's saying, don't worry about this. I got this. Go live your best life. And I think that's what Feyre's dad thought he was saying.
Yes.
But he wasn't. He was just saying like,
did a bad job at it.
yeah, get out of here. But I think Nesta, it was just cool to see her like, I got this. Like, step in, take in the information. So I still don't like Nesta, but I want more information about her. Shit's about to get real. Feyre runs back to the spring court and like everything's messed up. Like all hell has broken loose. The whole place is trashed and no one is there except Alice. Somehow she survived. So she tells Feyre that Lucien, Tamlin were taken to Amarantha under the mountain. Spooky. So this is when we finally learn about Amarantha. And this is a great payoff. Again, I think Sarah J. Maas does a good job at like this reveal. Like first we find out it's a she that they're afraid of, which instantly I'm like, I'm intrigued. Like,
100%.
Like, who is this evil, like, villain, this witch? I don't know. And then we get a name, and now here we are. So, Amarantha is the High Queen of Prythian. A High Queen? Yes. So, Prythian was ruled by the 7 High Lords until, like, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, something like that. Amarantha came over to fight in the war against humans because she was the king of Hybern's, like, right-hand woman. Yeah. Remember that Hybern is the fairyland across the sea. She was just important. She was, like, his right-hand woman or emissary or something like that. Remember also that Hybern no longer has humans. So like that's her work history in Hybern. She's the virtual assistant of the king of Hybern. Okay, but Amarantha had a sister. I don't know if we learned her name, but I can't remember. But sister fell in love with a human warrior named Jurian. So she was absolutely in love with him. And this was during like the fairy human war. But he was actually using her for information. He didn't actually love her and he tortured and killed her with Ashwood.
Not great.
So the way that, you know, when they, I think Tamlin says once that Ashwood, that will kill them, and that was revealed by somebody in the war. I think this is what they're saying, is this has happened. She told him that that would kill them, and then he used it on her. Ouch. Girl, Amarantha's sister, I'm so sorry.
Oh, rough.
That's like, ugh, you got cheated on, but like died at the end. Like, that's brutal.
That's basically worst case scenario.
Yeah. Getting killed, tortured and killed by your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Rude. But Amarantha loved her sister, as a lot of us do, and killed Jurian and has despised humans ever since. So as you can imagine, Amarantha, not a big fan of the treaty because she thinks that humans should just like disappear. Like she doesn't want to make peace with them. Why are they here? Let's get rid of them. So over the past 100 years or 50 years or whatever, she's been plotting to take Prythian for herself. And she's conniving. She's a little bit of a trickster. And she loves a party, okay?
Who doesn't?
At a ball with all the High Lords, she slipped some magic into their wine and Amarantha was like able to steal their powers or something. Or at least most of their powers. It left them with the bare minimum magic, so she was able to take control of Prythian, and she's been ruling for 49 years. So the blight isn't a sickness on the land, it is literally Amarantha. A multifaceted queen. She girl bossed her way up here. Where did the masks come from? Let me tell you about this. Amarantha had a little bit of crush and she wanted to be with Tamlin. And he was literally like, thanks but no thanks. Like instant rejection.
Yeah.
Lucien went to her as an emissary to try and keep the peace. I imagine he was like, you know, in like 6th grade, you get your friend to tell someone like you have a crush on them.
This all reads very much like people who have never been told no before and have to experience that for the very first time, but have the magic to do what they want with the people. Like if I were 13 years old and I had magic to like go after the boy that didn't like me, absolutely would have done that.
Why wouldn't I do that?
Why wouldn't I do that?
I already know I'm the best girl out there for him, so obviously. I imagine Lucien gets there and is like, hey, you're my friend, he's my friend. He doesn't feel the same way. Like, I'm sorry. I know another friend who might like
that's
you.
A tough conversation.
And she was like, no, and then dug out his eyeball. That attempt at keeping the peace doesn't work. Lucien failed that mission. So Amarantha hosted another ball. She loves a party. I love it. And everyone from the spring court wore masks to honor Tamlin's shape-shifting ability. So like Lucien had the fox, right? She said, be with me. We'll have some peace. And Tamlin was like, you, I would rather be with a human than you, which is
big bird.
Okay, a little bit of foreshadowing because he ends up with a human, but also she's wearing Jurian, the human that killed her sister, his eyeball on a ring.
This is such a cool detail.
So cool.
This is such a cool because it keeps him alive and in pain, and she gets to wear him. Again.
Oh, it's brutal.
Great, just like no morality.
Yeah. Oh, she's such a good villain. But so the fact that he says that to her, I mean, that's huge. Like, she's not happy about that. That was the wrong thing to say, I think. What? And that's when she cursed the court. Yeah. So the masks stay on and they don't have as much of their magic. But Amarantha is nonstop scheming. She's always scheming. She's always got something going on. So she said, boom.
She's not subtle, that's for sure.
She said, boom, you're cursed, but I'll give you one chance to break the spell. And it's really specific. She says,
wildly specific.
Tamlin has 7 times 7 years. I don't know why they didn't just say 49.
Say 49.
I don't know. So he had 49 years to find a human girl who hated fairies and would fall in love with them.
And kill one.
Yes.
Hated one to the extent that they would kill them.
Had to kill one of his men unprovoked. That's how they would find someone who, like, hates fairies. So Tamlin has been sending his men across the wall for 49 years. Wouldn't you know it? It took just about 49 years to find Feyre.
What?
The spell would have been broken if Feyre had just said the words, I love you, but she was keeping it on the DL. So no one could speak about the curse and how to break it, but now that the time is up, Alice can talk about it. Oh, and Tamlin had 3 more days when he sent Feyre away. This is why this part doesn't make any sense, because when Lucian was like, what do you mean you're not even going to give her a couple more days? That's what he meant. And he's right.
He's absolutely right.
Why would Tamlin send her away right then? Why not give her the morning after breakfast?
Seriously.
Don't make her do the walk of shame in the carriage.
It's also so funny that, like, after so much world building and so much interesting magic systems and all of this stuff, that all of this hinges on I love you.
Just the words, right? Because actually this is very much Beauty and the Beast. On my main channel, I reacted to the live action Beauty and the Beast. I talk about this where I'm like, okay, she knew that she just needed to say I love you. Why didn't she just say it?
Right.
But then it's like, okay, well, maybe the magic knows if she's telling the truth.
That's what have to be the assumption, right?
But if that were true here, the magic would know that she already
does. Yeah.
I don't know. You know what?
It's weird.
It's like he said I love you once and she didn't send it back and he was like, she doesn't love me.
I know. This is the other thing, is like, it's a manipulative thing of being like, this is the last time we'll see each other, so this is the last chance that you have to say it to me.
Yes.
That could also be a motivation if you wanted to play it that way.
Yeah. And I just think if he gave her 24 more hours and like maybe a couple more O's, she would have been there.
Glass of wine. Have a great time.
Exactly. Wine and dine her a little bit. Damn.
Come on.
Okay, but this part made me laugh out loud. Okay, so I'm gonna read this part. This is Alice.
Alice's behavior through this entire thing is so funny. She just despises Feyre in this movie.
Yeah, so I always imagine Alice standing like above her, like just very motherly vibes. Maybe that says something about my relationship with my mom. Anyway, you could have broken it, Alice snarled, those sharp teeth mere inches from my face. All you had to do was say that you loved him. Say that you loved him and mean it with your whole useless human heart, and his power would have been freed, you stupid, stupid girl. Look, Alice, I'm already feeling bad enough. Like, you really don't have to roast me right now.
I love her.
I didn't talk about her a lot in, like, as I was going through the script, but she's just always, like, keeping it real. And Alice takes her to the entrance under the mountain. And Alice gives her a big warning. Do not drink the fairy wine. Do not trust anyone, even Tamlin. And do not make any deals unless your life depends on it. And Feyre takes all of her advice.
She follows it to a T.
Now we go into the mountain, and this is the best part. And we have been filming for 2.5 hours, and we're just getting to this part. This is a problem.
But that is the just perfect example of how Sarah J. Maas books work. You read all of these things, and in the last 100 pages, it's entirely its own plot line.
Yes.
It's crazy how fast things happen in the last 100 pages of all of these books.
But anyway, so the Ador, which is a scary lesser fae creature, finds her immediately. Like, she doesn't even have a chance to try and, like, sneak around.
Which I appreciate, because that's exactly what should happen.
Yeah. And they can smell human, so she walks in, they're immediately like, She's discovered, she's taken to Amarantha, and she's sitting in a throne next to Tamlin. He shows no emotion when he sees her. He looks completely stone-faced. And Feyre becomes the knight in shining armor. And she's like, I'm here to claim the one I love, or something like that. Behind Feyre is the body of Claire
horrible.
Better.
Oh, it's horrible.
She was tortured and killed, and as you can imagine, Feyre is really haunted by this. Like,
I was haunted by it.
Yeah.
Sarah's really good a descriptor. Like her descriptions are very, very good. And her graphic violent descriptions are also good in the sense of like, it's not that they're graphic in a tantalizing in some way. Hers are just like, this is brutal.
And it doesn't become like torture porn.
Exactly.
Where it's just gratuitous for the sake of
and then keep
shocking.
like just over and over and over. Yeah. It's to the point and you get the point, but it's not over the top, which I really appreciate.
Yeah. And the real Feyre is here. And Amarantha, who, remember, loves a scheme, loves some drama, loves a riddle. She offers Feyre a deal. You can have
dumb.
You can have Tamlin back if you complete 3 tasks. Now, Feyre knows she shouldn't be making any deals, but like, okay.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. But she says she'll do it if it means Tamlin's curse will be broken and all of the Spring Court will be free forever. She's trying to make sure that like nothing is open-ended or ambiguous.
Right.
You know, because
she does get it.
And Amarantha, the drama queen, is like, you could skip the tasks if you want to. Like, let me give you a little out. Answer a riddle. Answer it any time. Your curse will be broken. Get it wrong. You're dead.
How long did it take you with the riddle?
I knew the answer immediately. Yeah, and I think everybody did.
Yes.
But every task will take place at the full moon. So Feyre is going to be here for a while. At least 3 months. Now we know.
So long.
I know. Unless these tasks kill her first, she's going to be here for at least 3 months. And then Amarantha is like, okay, wonderful. Guards. And then they her shit's rocked. Like, they beat her up. And so, after Feyre has her shit rocked by some fairies,
Which is like, that should be the first thing that you say is, you can't harm me. I have to be taken care of during this time.
Oh, God.
How do you miss a loophole that big?
Amarantha is a good villain.
Oh, absolutely.
I love
villain.
Hate her.
Yes.
I just love a villain where they give us that internal battle where we're like, I kind of understand where she's coming from, but also, this is bad.
You're taking this a little far. It's a little extreme.
Yeah, I don't think we need to like have a party.
I wouldn't go this far, but I can appreciate where you're coming from, and I can appreciate the drama of it all.
I do.
Love it.
Yeah, I really, really do.
The drama of it all.
And so Feyre wakes up in a cold cell. Like, she got knocked unconscious. She's in a lot of pain and her nose is broken. She's not having a good day.
No.
This is hard. But Lucien shows up and fixes her nose, but he can't heal her completely or then they'd be suspicious. So he fixes her nose. He doesn't want Amarantha to know that he's helping her. But something really interesting, and I want to hear your take on it, like from reading it the first time.
Yeah.
We're going to time travel back to reading it the first time. I was instantly like, why did Rhysand say that Claire was Tamlin's girl? Amarantha wants to know. She's like, you said that this was the girl. And he's like, well, all humans look alike to him. But,
Oh, yeah. I assumed there was more going on for sure. I didn't assume, like, what we find out later on, but I did assume that, like, obviously there's more to Rhys. Like, we know that there's more to Rhys. I don't remember spending a lot of time thinking about it, though.
Yeah. I wanted to know what scheme did he have.
Exactly. It always felt like he was scheming somehow, and it was just
because
a completely different way than Tamlin was doing it.
Yeah. And you can also tell, like, really early on, Rhys does not like Amarantha.
No!
He hates her. And that's another thing where we're like, okay, this is complex because we get that they call him Amarantha's whore.
Yeah.
But they're not, like, romantic. Even later on, a fairy tries to escape, and Rhysand like goes into his mind, that's his like magic, and just liquefies his brain. And Amarantha's like, why did you do that? I wanted to play with him, basically. Like, you know, and he's like, oh, you know, he was working alone. Like, in a way where it was like, was he working alone? So we learned more about Rhysand here, which again, I love. I think that she's adding a lot of complexity. Feyre refuses to give Amarantha her name. So Amarantha tortures Lucien for like 3 seconds in front of her before Feyre's like, Feyre! Just like that. And then we get the riddle. I'm just going to read this exactly.
Please do.
Okay, this is the riddle, everybody. Tell me in the comments if you get the answer. There are those who seek me a lifetime, but never we meet, and those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those brave enough to dare. By large, my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned, I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill slow. Now, tell me, guys, if I'm biased because this was my second read, but was this not obvious?
Okay.
It seemed kind of obvious.
This is what happened when I found out there was going to be a riddle. I was like, great, I'm terrible at riddles. So I skimmed that so fast. Didn't even try, really, honestly. Then we get through like the first task and they're like, well, what about the riddle kind of thing? And I went back and read it again and I was like, it can't possibly be love. That's so lame.
It's love.
It is.
Yeah.
I was like, that can't be it.
Literally, it would be so funny if the second it came out of Amarantha's mouth,
She
Feyre
knew
was
it.
like, love?
It's a lame
I
riddle.
think Sarah J. Maas, there are people who love to hate on her. And I think when people say that Sarah J. Maas is like just blanket statement, a bad writer, I think that is actually crazy.
I agree.
I think that different parts of it, like maybe the story structure, like overarching things that you can criticize, I think she creates like really beautiful writing. Like there are some descriptive parts that I was like, this is really gorgeous. But she can't write a riddle. And I can't write a riddle.
No.
I'm going to tell you, if I needed a really complex riddle in my story, I'm going over to Fiverr. I'm going to find somebody, hey, can you write me a riddle for,
Yeah, seriously.
$30? Full moon arrives. We've got our first task. Feyre is just plop, dropped into a labyrinth with a huge, disgusting worm monster.
So gross.
Yeah.
Did you see June?
And it's, no.
It's a giant sandworm.
I always imagined the worm from Beetlejuice when they opened the door. And it's the striped worm.
Okay, that's so
what
much
I
better
had
than
in
what
my
I had.
head.
I had the Dune sandworm in my head, which is far less fun than the Beetlejuice one.
Yeah. She pretty quickly realizes that he is blind and only relies totally on smell. Feyre is a hunter, so this is really
great.
cool.
Yeah.
And Amarantha did not expect this, which I think is fun. So she covers herself in mud and grime and sets a trap. She takes like bones from the worm's previous victims and snaps them so that they're shards and knives.
Crazy.
And then she takes a bone shard, cuts her arm so that the worm can smell her blood. A dramatic chase ensues, and then the worm falls into the trap and dies.
It's great. This is
Feyre
the best.
wins.
This is the best trial.
It's so
It's
cool.
so good.
Amarantha's not pleased.
Weird.
She also says that everyone in the court bet she would die except one person. Who is that one person?
It's gotta be Tamlin, right?
Back in her cell, Feyre realizes that she's in actually big trouble. The cut on her arm, that she was also covered in grime and dirt and stuff, it's not healing right. So
Yeah.
it's infected.
Magic doesn't get rid of bacteria, unfortunately.
No, and our girl is dying. But she gets a visitor, and it's not Lucian, it's Rhysand. He's the only one that bet she would survive. So this is juicy information.
So good.
Again, what is his deal? Like, what does he want with her?
What is his deal?
Is he just with Amarantha? Because Feyre can tell that he hates her.
Yeah. That's pretty obvious.
So Feyre has to make Rhysand a deal so that he will heal her.
This is excellent plot device. This
Yes.
is excellent writing.
Yes.
Where what's lacking in the like lore dump of Alice is completely made up for in
Yes.
this transaction right here, because this sets up the rest of the series.
Yes. So the question that Feyre is thinking is, does Rhysand despise Tamlin so deeply that he would make this deal just to with him? And I'm asking, does Rhysand have a crush? Because this is a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So Feyre takes the deal because she literally has no other
She's like
option.
delusionally with
And
a fever, right?
I believe, yeah. And I believe at first he said 2 weeks out of the month. And she said, you know,
She's got a barter.
yeah, I think
good at
she
it.
said no. She was like a week. And he was
That's a
like 10
lot.
days. And she was like a week. And then he, you know, he gave in, even though he didn't have to. But, you know, a week. And he heals her, but she's left with a tattoo on her whole left arm.
This is my favorite
And
thing.
on her palm is an eye. So this deal, like, is permanently on her body. So we have an entire month between tasks. And so in the meantime, Amarantha wants Feyre to come to a party.
Yeah.
She
I will
loves a
say-
party.
She loves a party. I will say with the tattoo,
Yeah.
this is a moment that makes me absolutely love fantasy.
Yeah.
Because to have magic worked in that way, I've never imagined magic working in that kind of way or seen it before. And
Yeah.
so having this physical representation of something that she wasn't supposed to do with somebody that she wasn't supposed to do it with, and I love that.
So Amarantha's throwing a party. She wants Feyre to come. So Rhysand has these night court ladies take Feyre and get her cleaned up and paint her entire body. Like,
This is gross.
so they paint her entire body and they put her in a very little, or, you know, revealing dress. Practically
Little revealing.
two
She's
strips
basically wearing nothing.
of sheer fabric. Like, she's wearing body paint
Yeah.
and like a drape, and that's it. But Rhysand had her painted because the paint will smudge if someone touches her. So he's basically claiming her as his own and also protecting her from the touches of other fae. He says, I don't like my belongings being tampered with. Okay, don't kill me. I thought that was hot.
Oh, really?
okay? Just a tiny bit, all right?
I hated it.
Like, the way that she describes him, I'm like, objectify me a little bit. You could do that if you wanted.
I get it. And I'm so there in the second book. Like, I get there for sure.
But right here, no.
But right here, no. I'm a gullible reader. You tell me he's a creep, I'm like, he's a creep.
Basically, she drinks a lot of fairy wine and blacks out.
Good for her, honestly. Get a little bit of a break.
Alice did say don't drink the fairy wine, so here we are, another warning from Alice. She's breaking. I don't think she had much of a choice either. No. She doesn't even remember the night at all. She wakes up in her cell with like the biggest hangover of all hangovers. Like, this poor girl. Lucian comes to see her, and Feyre learns that Rhysand made Feyre dance for him all night and had her sit in his lap.
Like, if the ownership thing wasn't enough, I don't want to ever interact with this character ever again. I really disliked him.
Yeah, I was just like, there's a reason why he's doing this. And I think I was just holding on to that. I was like,
absolutely.
There's a reason, there has to be.
And people who are like very experienced in like, especially fantasy romance or just romance stories at all, are like, oh, okay, this is, we're coming back to this. Like, there's something else going on for sure. I'm not super experienced in this genre, especially when I read this originally. I'm a little bit more now, but when I read this originally, not at all. So again, very gullible reader.
Yeah. What we do know is that she's painted, and so Rhysand shows, like, he grabs her arm, it smudges, and he says no one can touch you, and then he fixes it. So it even smudges when he touches her too. Right. So when she wakes up, and I think Sarah J. Maas added this in as like plausible deniability. She was like, I want you to know that this isn't happening, because she was like, she could see that she was only smudged like on her arms. Yeah. The first possibility, you don't even have to know anything about the series, but the first possibility where I'm like, what does Rhysand want with her is, oh, she's the best chance of getting rid of Amarantha.
He says that, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes complete sense to me that he would be like, I gotta help this stupid human.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, boom, it's time for the second task. She's in a pit that's separated into two kind of like chambers, and Lucian is on one side chained up. There are some big old spikes being like slowly lowered into the pit, and Feyre has to answer a question and pull the lever. There are 3 of them, but she can't read. Oh, this was tragic. I just was there with her in that moment. Like, it's not as violent and visceral as the worm was, I think. Right. Because she finds like bones and like very scary, and it's slimy and disgusting. This is just your like survival in this moment is hinged on the fact that you can't read.
It's so humiliating. Yeah. It's just, it's being dyslexic and being picked on in class to read out loud. Like, it is just like, this is the one thing I can't do. Lucian
is screaming, like, what are you waiting for? Like, they're lowering down on both of them. And Feyre doesn't want to scream, like, I can't read. So she's just internally screaming. So she decides she just has to guess. So she reaches for the second lever, but her hand burns so badly, like she just can't pull it. She moves to the other lever, hand burns again. Then the final lever, no burning. So she pulls it. And it was the right one. So Rhysand was helping her. Remember the tattoo on her arm and the eye? She's basically shaking and starting to cry. And Rhysand's voice in her head says, don't let her see you cry. We have a little good girl moment.
Yeah.
Okay? I heard words inside my head that stopped me short. Good, Rhysand told me. Stare her down. No tears. Wait until you're back in your cell. Count to 10. Don't look at Tamlin. Just stare at her. I obeyed. It was the only thing that kept me from giving in to the sobs trapped within my chest, thundering to get out. Good girl. Now walk away. Turn on your heel. Good. Keep your chin high. Let the crowd part. One step after another. Yeah, so we got a good girl moment.
Yeah.
Loved that. And again, we're getting like real humanity. Wait, should I say humanity? Feymanity. Like, you know, like compassion and like heart from someone. And I loved that. So again, I'm like, what the is up with Rhysand?
Yeah, seriously.
Like, I love the back and forth. It's very fun. Feyre holds it together long enough to just, like, until she gets to her cell. And she has, like, a full-on meltdown panic attack. She can't breathe. She is
absolutely
weeping.
Deserves it.
She can't stop crying. Rhysand shows up and decides to lick the tears off her face.
Again. Once again. This happened to me. Back and forth.
Again.
We said, oh, he's being so helpful with this deal. Immediately goes to just being a total douche. So gross at the party. Oh, he's like so helpful with the task and is being so kind and so like supportive.
Yeah.
Licking tears.
Yeah, it was weird. And I could be wrong about this, but I think it was kind of supposed to be a little sexy.
It was absolutely supposed to be sexy, and I have never found anything less sexy.
It was weird because he didn't kiss the tears off her face.
That would have been mean?
That would have been okay. I don't know, maybe I'm just weird, but I'm just like, ugh, salty.
That's so fair. I've read other descriptions of partners like crying and like kissing, right? That kind of thing.
That would have been sweet.
That would have been so sweet. Licking them.
But the truth is they didn't have the rapport, basically, for a kiss. That would have been way too much.
But you have the rapport to lick each other's faces?
Yeah. I think it was pretty bizarre. I didn't like it. I think it was supposed to be bizarre, too, because it kind of shook Feyre out of her breakdown. True, yeah. He kind of, like, smirked and, like, left. Feyre says, it took me a long time to realize that Rhysand, whether he knew it or not, had effectively kept me from shattering completely. Feyre, yeah, he's been trying to keep you alive. Like, you didn't know this?
Seriously.
He's the only person that's been helping you.
Literally the only one.
Have you noticed how I haven't said much about what Tamlin's doing this whole time?
Interesting.
Yeah, he's doing absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
And every time she sees him, he just like statue. And he's not trying to help her or anything. Feyre takes this as like oh, my poor, strong High Lord. Like, look what she's done to him. But I'm looking for a fight.
Seriously.
I'm looking for a fight, and he's not fighting back. I don't like it. One night, while Feyre is alone in her cell, this is between the second and third task, she starts to hear music, and it's so beautiful and moving that she cries. This was such a cool moment between Sarah J. Maas's like descriptive writing and the audio that I was listening to, because you could hear the music as Feyre described it, and they picked a really good one. There was beauty in this music, beauty and goodness. The music folded over itself like batter being poured from a bowl, one note atop another, melting together to form a whole rising, filling me. I love that sentence. I could live in that sentence. Oh my God.
Tell me that's not good writing. I dare you.
Yes, it wasn't wild music, but there was a violence of passion in it, a swelling kind of joy and sorrow. I pulled my knees to my chest, needing to feel the sturdiness of my skin, even with the slime of the oily paint upon it. So this is after like a fairy wine thing. The music built a path, an ascent founded upon archways of color. I followed it, walking out of that cell, through layers of earth, up and up, into fields of cornflowers, past a canopy of trees, and into the open expanse of sky. So she's like, she can see this in her mind. It says, the music rose louder, grander, faster from wherever it was played, a wave that peaked, shattering the gloom of my cell. A shuddering sob broke from me as the sound faded into silence. I sat there trembling and weeping, too raw and exposed, left naked by the music and the color in my mind.
Beautiful.
So beautiful. And I have read books where the author is trying to describe a piece of music and all you get is, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But that, I felt like I could hear that. We have reached the moment where I started to be real skeptical of Tamlin. And I know I might seem like a Tamlin hater. Why? I don't know why, guys, but I do. But the first time I read this, this was my reaction. Okay, so Feyre's at another party. Remember, she's covered in body paint and just like a drape.
I felt the exact same way about this situation.
Okay, she's left alone in a corner for a moment, and Tamlin is like signaling to her to, go into this little hidden corridor or hallway.
You're like, finally, he's doing something.
Guess what? Tamlin does the minute they're alone. Does he kiss her and say, I love you, I'm so sorry, we're gonna get out of here together?
This is the way out.
Something like that.
Or we're going.
He grabs her hand and tries to escape right there. He's like, we don't have much time, and they try to go. Or maybe he has some relevant information about the riddle. Like, all of these are options. This would be a great time for any of those. No. Immediately, without a word, starts making out with her and undressing her.
Horrifying.
So, now, to be fair, Feyre is like, oh my God, okay, let's go.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, she's probably still a little drunk at this party as well.
Oh my God, she probably is.
Yeah, so she's probably...
Okay, whatever Feyre is doing, let's talk about, is this person able to consent at this moment? Putting aside that she might be drunk on fairy wine, which she probably is. Putting that aside, she is literally traumatized and being beaten like on a regular basis. Oh, also, the only reason she's not being beaten by guards anymore is because Rhysand saw the guards and was like, don't touch her.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so like, again, hello.
And everyone's so scared of Rhys that they are gonna follow. Yeah.
Rhysand is doing all the heavy lifting around here, and occasionally Lucien comes and visits her. But you know what? Tamlin's not doing anything. And I am screaming. You're telling me that you get only the briefest moment together and you go for a quickie. Like, there are only
literally
a few moments before someone even realizes you're gone. And that's the other thing, is realizing you have maybe 60 seconds. Why are you trying to get down right now?
Seriously.
It's so weird.
What about the situation is like, this is the moment that we need to have sex?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Okay, so my theory is that Tamlin didn't believe for 1 second that Feyre would be able to free them. That's my theory.
Interesting.
I mean, it is an impossible task. Amarantha gave her tasks and a riddle she knew she couldn't solve. Like, she give her all that. But I don't think Tamlin trusted in her abilities at all. Like, Rhysand, who didn't even know Feyre, bet that she would win. He saw how strong-willed and determined and intelligent with her, but Tamlin, who spent like 3 months, maybe 4, with Feyre, I don't think he believed in her. And so I think he was like, let's, you know, when we he got a chance to be alone with her, he was like, one last hurrah.
Yeah. When I read it as like, this is our last chance to be together because the odds are so against you. But that still means the exact same thing, that he doesn't think that they're ever gonna see each other again, or like this is their last chance. And it's so telling too that your last moment with someone, that it is a sexual thing, and it's not just I want to hold you, or like I want to be with you, or can we just be together for a moment. It's immediately that you want to have sex with that person.
It could have been done in so many other ways. He could say, even just like hold her face and say, I love you.
Yeah.
Right? He could say anything, but instead he starts groping her.
It's weird.
Okay, and then they get discovered, because of course they do, but it's
because he's done nothing to try and hide them.
No.
He also has magic.
He does. He does have magic.
Do anything.
Oh god. Rhysand is the one who finds them. He shoos Tamlin away and then starts making out with Feyre. Because literally a second later, a group of fairies find them. So he created a diversion, like, so it looked like he was the one who touched Feyre, because like the paint smudges.
Because she's smeared all over the place. And at this point, the fact that Tamlin isn't even taking that into consideration is out of this world. No. That is insane.
I find it like really unacceptable. And Rhysand is scolding Feyre. He's like, what the are you doing? Like, Amarantha's literally 6 feet away. What are you doing? Can't you see? Like, if you're touched, people will know.
Yeah.
And then he kisses her for 5 seconds, and then the curtain opens, and she's like, oh, that's why. Yeah. I was like, oh my god, Feyre, keep up, baby. Come on. Okay, well,
we're gonna blame it on the wine.
So that night, Rhys visits Feyre, and he's looking haggard. He says that he is made to serve in Amarantha's bedroom like a sex slave. And that's why everyone calls him Amarantha's whore. And that's
so sad.
So sad. And he says he's helping Feyre and keeping her close to rile up Tamlin. So then when Feyre wins, again, Rhysand believes in her, he'll get his powers back and immediately go WWE SmackDown on Amarantha and kill her. He wants to like rile him up so like the monster powers, like extra monstery. The question that I've been wondering is, why does Amarantha keep Rhysand as her whore when it doesn't really seem like she likes him? She's clearly in love with Tamlin and wants him, even though he said he'd rather be dead. Like, Tamlin, girl, move on. But we learned from Rhysand that years ago his father killed Tamlin's father and brothers, and now Amarantha is punishing Rhysand for it.
Yeah.
So all this time, I was like, they hate each other. Like, what the fuck is going on? And again, we're just seeing that Amarantha is an absolute horrible person.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A terrible villain.
Horrible.
Just when you think, like, she'll say something where you're like, damn, that's funny. Like, this is a good villain. And then she does something and you're like, oh, no, this is a villain.
This is bad.
Capital V villain, okay?
Yeah.
Then Feyre has the dumbest realization in history. She's like, you've been keeping me alive? Like, yeah, babe. Glad you've joined us. Welcome.
What do you think's been going on?
I don't know. You know what? She's in survival mode. The nervous
100%.
system does crazy things. So maybe she's just dissociating the whole time. Okay, anyway, we're finally at the third trial. Feyre is brought into the throne room, and 3 fairies are brought in, their heads covered. Oh my god, this was
a lot.
3 servants stand beside each of them holding like ashwood daggers. Ashwood, remember, kills fairies. Amarantha wants Feyre to kill all 3 fairies.
Horrible.
Stab them in the heart. This is so intense. The first fairy begs for his life. And there is someone crying in the audience. So like Feyre not only has a person in front of her that is begging for his life that she has to kill, she can hear the crying in the background. She's like, these are family members, loved ones, innocent fairies, and Feyre has no choice but to kill them. I think everyone in the audience understands that too. The only way that this curse is broken is if Feyre does this. One by one, she has to remove their hoods, look them in the eye, pick up a dagger, and stab them in the heart. And the fact that she doesn't just go with one dagger, it's literally...
That's what I was thinking too, is like that you have to pick up an individual one for each one is somehow so much more twisted than just giving you one.
She has to pick up the dagger and make the choice to kill that fairy. That is dark. This is where it gets interesting. The hood comes off and it's Tamlin.
It's insane.
The Tamlin that was sitting next to Amarantha, but then the one that was just sitting next to Amarantha transforms, and it was the Ador pretending to be Tamlin. So Feyre is freaking out. Like, she thinks Amarantha tricked her. The only way she can save all of Prythian is by killing the one she loves. But Feyre is smart sometimes. And she remembers something she overheard Lucian say at the Spring Court. Do you remember? For someone with a heart of stone, you sure are going soft these days. And Tamlin can't say anything, but he's looking in her eyes like, do it, right?
Yeah.
And so Feyre stabs him in the heart. Oh God, this was so juicy.
So good.
I think I started reading the Under the Mountain section and I read it all in one evening. Like, I could not put it down.
I have a friend who's currently reading it right now, and I was like, once you get to the new location...
Second location,
don't start at 10 p.m. because you will not stop reading it.
Yeah.
You have to start with a good chunk of time.
That's a very responsible, like, warning for a book, for sure. My blood pressure's soaring. Like, I'm freaking out. It's really good.
So good.
Okay, but she stabs him, and the knife comes out bent. Right at the tip. So Tamlin does have a heart of stone.
It's literal.
That's why he's such an idiot. That was the last part. So that was the last part of the curse that no one could tell Feyre. So Amarantha is a sneaky and is so like, sneaky. Okay, sure, I'll free them, but like, I never said when.
No timestamp was given.
I was so annoyed. I mean, like, of course she did, because she was like, well, you're ruining my fun. Like, you broke the curse. She only said that she would free them immediately if Feyre got the riddle right. So Amarantha is so pissed off that this scrawny human beat all 3 tasks that she starts attacking her personally. Yeah. Like, she's squaring up. And she says she will let her live if she admits she doesn't love Tamlin.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote down, she's a sore loser. That's what she is. But Feyre won't, because Feyre is scrappy and she's badass, okay?
And she's in love with Tamlin.
As she's getting beaten by Amarantha, Rhysand runs over and tries to stab Amarantha, but she's too quick for him. Like, she stole all of their power.
This is like, such a good moment because we see, if you like slow it down, Amarantha is coming after Feyre, who at this point is like emaciated and is exhausted, just been in the worst conditions for 3 months at this point. And then you have Rhys, who comes over and starts to try and physically fight Amarantha. Yeah. And what does Tamlin do? He starts begging Amarantha to let her go. That scene right there says so much about every single one of those characters. It's so good.
Oh, you're so right. There's a moment when she takes the hood off of the third fairy and it's Tamlin. Yeah. Rhysand looks pale. He had no idea. Yeah. Amarantha's too quick for Rhysand and starts torturing him. Yeah. Feyre immediately begs her to stop. Yeah. So she wants to protect Rhysand. As she's being beaten within an inch of her life, like, Feyre is switching back and forth between her body and Rhysand's perspective.
This was so bizarre and I loved it. I was very confused by it for a second. And then once I understood what was going on, I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, so the tattoo bond keeps them in each other's brains, basically. So Tamlin finally does something, but he's begging. Begs Amarantha not to kill Feyre, and basically, with her dying breath, she says the answer to the riddle. She's like, it's love. Like, and not speaking, you know, like blood. Right after she says the answer, Amarantha snaps Feyre's neck like a chicken bone.
At least when I was reading it, this was a page turn, and so I was like, I went back and forth over and over, like, wait, she can't be dead. She can't possibly be dead. Dead. But the graphic description of like how severe that, like, it's very specific that her neck is broken. Ooh, and so you're like, oh no, she is fully dead. But then she like gets zoomed out into Rhys's perspective.
Yes, so Feyre can now see through Rhysand's eyes, even though she's like dead.
And she's seeing her own body on the ground with her neck at a weird angle.
Yes, but since she answered the riddle, instantly everyone has their powers back. Yeah. And they're all approaching Amarantha like, well. And she's backing up. She's immediately like, oh, let's talk about this, guys. Like, let's not make any hasty decisions. And Tamlin just like rips her throat out. Like, literally just kills her.
Does he go into beast form, or is he in his fae form for that? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Do the claws come out?
The claws come out. The claws are out, but I don't know if he does like a full... Yeah. You know? Oh, yes. Yeah, he shifted into his beast form faster than I could see, fur and claws and pound upon pound of lethal muscle. He had no sooner hit the wall than he gripped her by the neck, and the stones cracked as he shoved her against it with a clawed paw. Oof. I think that is a punishment for Amarantha. The one that she just was like so desperate to have. I'm glad that he's the one that killed her. Although I wish Feyre had the satisfaction.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
I don't think she needed it at that point. Just like, want to be done.
So Feyre's dead. Tamlin comes over to Feyre and sobs over her dead body. But then something magical happens. So one by one, the High Lords of Autumn, Summer, Winter, Dawn, and Day, they all come over and basically bless Feyre's body with magic. Like they give her a little piece of their magic. And Rhysand comes over too, and he says, for what she gave, we'll bestow what our predecessors have granted to few before. He paused. This makes us even, he added. And I felt the twinkle of his humor as he opened his hand and let the seed of light fall on me.
I love the description of twinkle.
I know. Then Tamlin says he loves her and she wakes up. So she wakes up and she's a fairy.
She's a high fae.
She's a high fae. She's now immortal. Her body isn't broken and everything feels like brighter and different. Now you might be thinking, I can't wait to hear about the romantic reunion Tamlin and Feyre have now that she's alive and literally saved the entire land of Prythian and the entire world. Yeah, no, they immediately have sex.
Yeah, just
no words, just sex.
Just sex.
Okay.
At least this is more consensual on Feyre's end at this time.
I know. Well, and Feyre at this point, she was like, I don't want to talk. She's so traumatized.
Yeah.
And so she's like, yeah, let's just bang. And girl, I hear you. I do. There are moments, I get it. I'm just not a big fan of Tamlin. Like, I was just waiting for Tamlin to say, you did it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, but you never get that. Just before it's time for everyone to return to their courts and Tamlin and Feyre are going to the Spring Court, Rhysand has a moment with Feyre. She's like, why did you fight so hard to save me? And Rhysand says he didn't want her to fight alone or die alone. And he asked her what it's like to be Fae now. How does it feel? Oh, this part got me. She's so devastated. Like, her body is better, but her heart aches for the fairies that died, for Claire Better that was killed because in her place, like for all the trauma she went through. Remember, she's been under the mountain for 3 months.
And everyone here has been under the mountain for 50 years.
Yes.
Decades.
I just think about things in my life that have traumatized me. And that was just for like a couple days. Like, this is months, you know?
Yeah.
Like, wow. But that's some capital T trauma.
Seriously.
Like, she is not doing good. And she says, I'm an immortal who has been mortal. This body, I looked down at my hand so clean and shining, a mockery of what I've done. This body is different, but this, I put my hand on my chest, my heart. This is still human. Maybe it always will be, but it would have been easier to live with it. My throat welled. Easier to live with what I did if my heart had changed too. Maybe I wouldn't care so much. Rhysand stared at me for long enough that I faced him. Be glad of your human heart, Feyre. Pity those who don't feel anything at all.
I want to scream.
I love that. I love that. But, like, who doesn't have a heart? Maybe someone who's had a heart of stone for the last 49 years?
Interesting.
Okay. This is the part where I was like, the book ended and I was like, I gotta read the second one. I immediately went out and bought it. Just as Rhysand is about to disappear.
Wait, before we get to this.
Yes.
Isn't there a moment that the reason that she goes and finds Rhys is because she feels a tug? Isn't that the first time that we find out about this like little connection that they have?
I was pulled from sleep by something tugging at my middle, a thread deep inside.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. Again, it's the magic system that we've got that's like very particular to Rhys that we haven't seen before. Yeah. And that it's not just a physical mark, like it's a mental thing that they have this connection that like becomes such a huge thing moving forward. But anyway, I just really like that.
Yes, yeah. So no, thank you for bringing that up because she's like sleeping with Tamlin and then she feels that and she goes out to like the balcony or something and that's where she and Rhys have this conversation. And just as Rhys is supposed to disappear and he's kind of like, see you in a month because you know she agreed to do that.
He's being cheeky.
He's about to disappear. He suddenly like goes rigid and looks at her like he's never seen her before.
I lost my mind reading this.
Like clearly something's going on and then Feyre basically gets out like, what? And then he disappears.
What I remember the description being is that he looks shocked and like unstable. And that's the first time that we ever see like real instability from him. He's always in control to some extent. Yeah. And to see that like pure just unknown is so tantalizing.
Oh my God.
I also went out and got the second book immediately because of that. I wanted that moment explained so fast.
It says his eyes locked on mine, wide and wild, and his nostrils flared. Pure shock. Pure shock flashed across his features at whatever he saw on my face, and he stumbled back a step.
Yes.
Actually stumbled.
He actually stumbled.
And then he disappeared. So, oh yeah, he just always has a plan.
So the fact that he's like caught off guard to such a physical extent is really telling.
Oh, so tasty. I wanted more. I was just like, oh my God, what did you just realize?
Good.
This is why I say you have to read the second book. So Amaranth is gone. The curse is lifted. Feyre is now a high fae. The book ends with Tamlin going back to the Spring Court. Like,
Yay.
I mean, that's it. Okay, that's the end.
We did it!
Thanks for joining. If you want to see more from Marchie, she's on TikTok. I'm going to put her handle right here. She's amazing. She's also wanting to start a YouTube channel. You already have one though, right?
I technically do have a YouTube channel. There are a couple of videos on there. They're not great, but you can go subscribe if you want.
Marchie has a YouTube channel, but she is just about to get started, like posting a lot more videos. So if you like her personality and her pizzazz, please subscribe. She's great. Also check out my Patreon, 18+, because I do unfiltered things about like romance and the smut in it and stuff. If you want to support me on Patreon, I really appreciate it. It's patreon.com/daddyhannah. Look at my main channel or other stuff. I don't know. You can look in the description box. Okay, bye. Thank you again to Blessa for sponsoring this video. Remember, use my link in the description. Sign up. Everyone wins something.